have Mariala, we have Graham, we have Yosef, we have myself. So we have a quorum. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So thank you all for joining. It's been a very challenging day for so many of us. I actually called my assistant chair, Danielle Jetu, to discuss whether or not we should postpone our meeting because it was just unfathomable for me to even try to conduct this meeting, and considering what's going on with the attack on our democracy. But Danielle, thank you very much for reminding me that our work must continue. And Danielle also reminded me that our committee is very important, especially now considering what's going on in our country. It's a direct example of the importance of building a strong public affairs, a public safety committee, and work with our local precincts. This could happen anywhere. You know, we are not removed from these sort of acts of terror in our own community. Hopefully we don't ever get to that point in New York State or New York City, but we have to all maintain our vigilance and keep democracy moving forward. The lowest level of democracy is often the most important level of democracy, and that is the community board here. So we're going to move forward and do the best we can to move forward and do our work and make sure we're serving as we have been called to do. So without further ado, my name is Curtis Young. I am the chair of CB12 Public Safety Committee. I'll allow my committee members to jump in and introduce themselves, starting with my assistant chair.
I'm Danielle. I'm the assistant chair.
All three of them. Make sure they don't have warrant.
I'm Graham Serrallo, public member.
Yosef, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mariella Graham.
Yosef Kalinsky, member of the committee.
All right, thank you very much. We are also joined by a representative from Assembly Member Al Taylor's office.
Good evening, everyone.
And we are joined by Joanna Garcia from State Senator Robert Jackson's office. Joanna, are you on?
I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right, thank you very much. As I mentioned, we're going to just dive right in and give space to anyone who has questions for our precinct officers, as we have done in our previous months. And we will then go to discuss our resolution from the past month that we did not have ready in time for our general body meeting in December, but we have finished the resolution. The resolution on the less is more technical parole violation legislation is now up in Albany, drafted by our assistant chair, Danielle Jetu. We'll share that, and we can add anything to it, and it'll be ready to go up for a vote in our general body meeting. But those are our main points on the agenda. Are there any other items that anyone wanted to bring up for the agenda for January? Okay, hearing none. One additional item I wanted to add to the agenda was we discussed previously organizing a reimagining public safety session. So I want to make sure we discuss that before we leave today. So that's our agenda for this evening. We will start off with an update from Sergeant Perez, the 34th Precinct. Sergeant Perez, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Sergeant Perez, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, how's it going? Update in regards to what?
You all will usually give us an update on the crime stats, the 28-day period, and any other enforcement issues that you want to bring to our attention. So how about we start with the 28-day period and what's been going on in the community?
Pretty much going to start off, the number one complaint in the precinct is noise complaint. And so far, I mean, for 2020, we issue about 33 summons for noise complaints. Most of the categories for the summons are loud music. As you guys already know, it was 3 alarm fire yesterday and 74 posts. There was no fatalities. There was a few families that displaced. So we're lucky there was no fatalities as far as that. I'm still investigating the fire. As far as you guys got any particular questions in regards to everything else, I mean, feel free to ask. Anything else
Okay.
that'll help.
All right, perfect. Is this your first time attending our meeting?
Yeah, it's the first time.
Okay, well, I give you a little parameter, a cheat sheet for next time. So usually when the officers come from the precincts, they will give us an update on any increases in crime, burglaries, GLAs. They'll share those numbers, any domestic violence numbers that we should be aware of. So those are the data points that we like to hear at our committee meeting. I know this is your first time, so we won't hold it against you. But if you can come prepare next time for those data points, we would greatly appreciate it. There's also a time for our committee members to pose questions to you all based on those numbers. So that's kind of like what we expect. I know this is the beginning of the year and this is your first meeting. So if you can come with those numbers next time, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. And also, I sent over, you all sent over, updates on noise complaints and other summonses, but that, we need more information than that. So we'll have questions. To Cheryl Miller's point, we will pose questions. We'll have the committee pose questions, and also be able to have our public pose questions after the next report. I want to get the precincts out the way before we pose questions altogether. So we're going to move on to the 33rd, Lieutenant Zambrano.
Hey, how you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to everybody. Let me start down with the robbery breakdown. For the 28-day period, we're up 17 versus 11. That's a 55% increase. A lot of our robberies come from a delivery person robberies, whether it be, the delivery man that everybody, through the corona, deliveries are up. That presents more targets of opportunity for people that want to rob these guys and gals. You know what I mean? A lot of them are also phone snatches, with everybody doing a lot of the Zoom calls or video calls as they walk up and down the street. Easy targets for, some of these people to go up and down the street, just snatch phones and run away from them. We're getting a few of those robberies we've gotten in our, I don't know if you guys are aware of the different sectors. Sector Charlie, which is our northern eastern side of the precinct, which is Amsterdam, Audubon, St. Nick, Broadway on the 170s area. We've been hit with a lot of robberies in that area. Also, some of them come from Sector Adam, which is the lower end, 160s to the lower 170s on that same side, St. Nick, Edgecombe, Audubon, all those areas. You guys have any questions on the robberies before I continue to the burglaries?
Not yet.
All right. Burglary breakdown for the 28-day. We have we're kind of even with a slightly lower compared to like last year's 28-day, 13 versus 14. So we're a little bit low, which is a good thing. 54% of our burgs are residential burgs. 38% of them were commercial burgs, which is commercial establishments. A lot of commercial establishments that have been closed. Due to being closed, there's perfect targets of opportunity also for anybody who wants to break in and take, whether it's liquor, any kind of money that could have been left behind in businesses, or video equipment, whatever anybody can grab. These empty establishments are pretty good targets. We have a couple of truck burglaries. Any commercial truck, once you break into it, is classified as a burglary, a commercial burglary. So anytime they break into any commercial trucks, whether it's like the Con Ed trucks, construction vans, the Verizon van, anything like that. A lot of those take-home vans, once they break into them for tools, that's commercial burglary. Let me see. Also, we also classify a lot of package thefts as burglary. So we have an increase in that. We have 1 second. We're up 46 versus 10, which is a large amount of packages taken, more than the same time period last year. And that is due to all the, home deliveries, everybody doing all the shopping online and stuff like that. As you guys know, And anytime you walk down to your lobby, there's a large amount of the, packages. Anybody who comes in and out of the building could just grab one and walk, and that in itself is a burglary. Let me go up to the GLA breakdown, which is grand larceny over auto. We have a very big problem with that. I've been the special ops lieutenant for about a month already. I've been here for 10 months, and that's something that I see a lot in the streets is, I don't know why, and I get it, people are comfortable in their community, but people leave their cars running unattended all the time here. And these other, I don't want to, these criminals are becoming aware of the fact that half of these cars are unattended. So they're just taking off with them. We are up, the 28-day period, we're up 5 versus 3. That's a 66% increase. That's a lot of them. We have alarms on a lot of them. So anytime we spot them, we're able to follow them. A lot of them will take off either into the Bronx or into Jersey. And all of them usually have the keys in the ignition. They're on, and when the person comes down, we usually ask them, listen, why did you leave it on? And they'll just say, oh, I went up to the bathroom, I went up to see my grandma, whatever they might have been doing. And that's something that could be avoided by just turning off the car and walking with your keys,
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions regarding to that?
Okay. Do you have any other stats we want to share before we?
Yeah, I have the noise stats. We have our top 5 locations. It's 525 West 169, 524 West 169, and the top 3 pretty much. The top 2, I'm sorry, are the same location. Ever since I've been here, I've been targeting that location. That's not only a noise complaint location, it's also one of our chronic narco /311 locations. We've been targeting that with several operations. We made numerous arrests for street level sales, possession, and a few other summonses that we've handed out in the area.
Okay.
We're slowly targeting that area. The noise complaints also come from a school area, which I guess it's a lot of kids when they're let out, when they hang out, because now there's a new playground in that corner. On 169 169 to 170 in Audubon, there's a new yard, a new playground that opened up. So that also, raised the volume of 311 noise complaints.
Mm-hmm.
We have another one, 57 West 172, 765 Riverside, and 575 West 172. All these have been targeted. We're slowly but surely, addressing them. I have all my NCOs do 75 community visits, directed visits at those locations. I encourage them to, walk and talk to the community, talk to the complainants of these complaints, and that's what we got as far as the noise complaints. You want me to break it down by quarters, sir?
No, that's fine. No, wait, 1 second. Who's interject? Could you wait? Someone who's trying to interject. Okay. I think you don't have to break it down by quarter. That's fine. Do you have any other numbers you want to share before we move on to questions?
No, not right now, sir.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, Sergeant. Lieutenant. So Sergeant Perez, if you're still on, that was a great example of the data we like to hear at our meetings. So next month you can prepare a similar sort of update for us. All right, so I guess we're going to open it up to questions for the precinct representatives. And then once we get the questions answered from the precinct representatives, we will move on to the fire department. The community affairs person is here. And then I'll go over to the director, Superintendent Miller, for an update. So you two are up next, but we're gonna go into the precinct questions first. And I'll start off. So we've been receiving, so the package reporting is, I have a question about that. The numbers seem really low compared to what I imagined to be true. We said there were like 40, I'm looking at the 33rd precinct, maybe 40 compared to 46 compared to 10 last year. Do you think the number, I think 46 is low. Is it because people are not reporting the package staffs?
Well,
or do you, and also that's question number one. And the second question is, what are your recommendations for those who are listening on reporting package staffs? I know some of my neighbors have knocked on my door with complaints, and I've told them, I'm not the person to contact because I'm not a law enforcement officer. But what is the best route? Should they call 311 to reach one of your officers, or should they? What do you recommend to those who are listening who may not know what to do about package stuff? We have signs in my building. There are signs in other buildings in my neighborhood, but I don't think people are actually reporting them. So your data may not be accurate.
So 46 versus 10, it is a low number. What happens a lot of times, people don't even realize their packages are missing because, you know, with the large amount of, you know, mailed items these days, most companies will refund you if you tell them, listen, if you don't have it, don't worry, it might have got lost somewhere. But most of the time, I always tell people, listen, number one, we need cameras in literally every lobby, which most lobbies do. Number two, a lot of people let unfamiliar faces into their buildings. The minute they're inside the building, you know, feel free to just challenge whoever comes into your building and say, listen, I'm sorry to, hey, sir, ma'am, do you live in a building? If that creates an argument, so be it. But you're saving yourself and a lot of other people headaches that not only come from, package thefts. God forbid him or her, you know, attempt to, you know, burglarize an apartment, do a home invasion. God forbid that person has a gun and, you know, decides to rob somebody in the building at gunpoint, you know, and other violent crimes. So the only thing I could say is make sure the doors are always locked. If your door is for some reason, you know, malfunctioning, the lock is, you know, it's not operating, let the super know. You know, if you have a problem with that, feel free to always contact the precinct. We have our community affairs officers who are willing to reach out. Or we call them the NCOs, the community, our neighborhood coordination officers, and they work with superintendents, management officers throughout the whole precinct. And when we work with them doing, you know, directed patrols of those buildings, and we help with, you know, keeping those areas safe, we always do. I always tell the officers to target certain buildings, especially if we have a large amounts of package thefts. You could come into the precinct and say, listen, can I have, you know, some officers work with the management so, you know, maybe the police can work, you know, talk some sense into the management and say, listen, guys, you got to get some real good working locks into this building because some of these locks, you could just push them real hard and they'll open up, you know?
Yep. Okay.
And these thieves, they know that. So if management doesn't want to listen, we could always talk to them. Just come into the precinct, say you want to talk to the community affairs officers or the community neighborhood coordination officers. We also call them NCOs. And we'll be happy to talk to, you know, the management, the supers, work with them. And if they tell us, listen, we keep fixing it, but somebody keeps breaking them, now we're aware of the building and the problem, and we'll keep an eye on it. Worst comes to worst, if it gets to my attention, which the NCOs, you know, they're one of my teams, I'll start doing observations at those buildings. And if anybody has, and you know, if one of the residents says, listen, I've seen a guy, he comes from this hour to this hour, he looks like this. Let me just describe myself. Male Hispanic, black hair, approximately 5'8". He's heavy set. Listen, he comes between this time and this time. He usually grabs the packaging and walks. Listen, we'll set up around that time and talk, you know, challenge him, you know, whoever the guy is. And if we grab him in the act, even better. Then we'll charge him with whatever package thefts we can match him up with, especially if there's video. We have, you know, the detectives who do a lot of good work with the video. They'll be able to match him up, and we charge him with every theft that he's done that we could, you know, match him up to.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I think that was a lot of people don't know.
And like you said, a lot of these numbers are low. I mean, you know, nobody really knows if a package has been stolen until they you know, like, unless you get that notification on your phone or your email saying, you know, your package has been delivered. And unless you go to the super and the super says, oh, shoot, you know, somebody took some packages, then you're kind of, you're kind of like still not 100% sure if your package was stolen. But so that number is low. You're right. It could be much higher. We just don't know the exact number because those guys are very, very rarely caught in the act, you know?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. I've noticed in my buildings, my area, my neighbors have been sharing that packages are being opened and they're taking out the contents and leaving the box.
Yeah.
So, but
and what we do when you ever see that, I always tell people, I used to be in the detective bureau, you know, like the guys in the suits that come and investigate. Do not touch those packages because they leave prints behind. They always leave something behind. Just leave it alone. Call 911. Tell them, listen, officer, this is what he left behind. This is what he grabbed. This is, you know, the plastic wrapping that was on the package. I saw him taking. He took it out, put it in his pocket, and you know, I put it in a paper bag for you guys. Just it's intact. Nobody has touched. Nobody play with it. So we're able to call, you know, our evidence collection team, and they come swab it, and we could match them up to different crimes. You know, him or her could have done a burglary in the past, and we're like, oh, you know what? That's Zambrano, you know, Gabriel Zambrano. He did this in the past, and now we have him again. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's very important to know because I didn't know that we shouldn't touch the packages. There's been several that in my building I took them up to my neighbor's apartment. So now I know. If you're listening out there, if you see open boxes, leave them there and then file a complaint with the NCO. So thank you very much. That was my first question. My second question is, you mentioned the drug street sale issue. There's been someone contacted me recently about the increase of street level drugs being sold, I guess maybe because I don't know why, but there seems to be increases in certain areas. So what advice do you have for people who have concerns about folks either coming into buildings or standing in front of buildings or standing in front of their building, which visibly selling drugs on the street? What advice do you have to anyone who's listening about how to report this sort of activity?
So you could call 311 and file a 311 complaint, right? Another way I always tell people to do it, it's a faster way of getting a hold of our attention is just come into the precinct or call the TS operator in the precinct and tell them you wanna make a complaint about drug sales in your building or drug activity outside of your building. Believe it or not, standing and loitering in front of a building it's illegal. So, as much as you see people hanging in a corner or in front of buildings, that in itself is legal. It's blocking pedestrian traffic, and that is not permitted. So whenever we approach, we have these kind of complaints. We observe people doing these things. We observe people, in the commission of selling drugs or maybe going into the building to sell drugs or use drugs. We have many tools that we could use to target that, whether we observe them or maybe we go in a building, we do directed patrols into the building. Whoever doesn't belong in a building, they get a summons for trespassing,
Yeah.
If management, we ask them, listen, bud, you live here? Oh, yeah, they give me, a half story, excuse my language. If they give me a Fugazi story and it doesn't check out, guess what? They're going to get a summons for trespassing, along with whatever else they were doing. If they were smoking drugs or selling drugs, they're getting locked up.
Cool. Thank you very much for those.
So feel free to, call 311 or I know there's a 311 app. If not, just come into the precinct and say, listen, I want to talk to, I want to make a complaint of drug sales or either inside or in front of my building. This is what they're doing. Please, make sure you guys take a look at it, and, we'll be happy to do it.
Thank you.
And then some of these take time. I don't want you to think like we're going to show up the next day and just lock up the whole, crew that you think is selling drugs. We like to observe, see what happens, who's who deals with what. It works, just give it a little bit of time and we'll be, make sure we target it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to turn it over to my fellow committee members. If they have questions, please raise your hand or pose your question. All righty. I don't see any committee questions. There is a question from Cheryl Miller. Cheryl, you want to go ahead and pose your question now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Good
Yes,
evening,
ma'am.
everybody, and Happy New Year. Okay.
Happy New Year.
So my question is to the lieutenant of the 33rd Precinct. I forgot your name. I'm sorry.
Lieutenant Zambrano.
Okay. Hi, Detective Lieutenant Zambrano.
How
Okay,
are you, ma'am?
so I'm fine. Okay, so two things. You didn't mention, I had read something that on New Year's Day, there was a shooting on, I believe it was 161st and Riverside. You didn't give any update about that incident, and it was.
All right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So it was a shooting at 162nd Street between Broadway and Fort Wash. Before I go on, it's an ongoing investigation, so I could only give you so many details. But in a nutshell, the victim is fine. He was conscious the day of. He was fine. He was shot on the neck, kind of like shoulder area on his left side. He was conscious. He was awake. He went into the ER. They removed most of it. It was just, I think he had a little bit of some pieces of the bullet stuck, that were left inside of him, but he's fine. I believe he's discharged already. There seems to be, bit of it comes from a little bit of, gang conflict between two different, groups of individuals who don't get along with each other. That's all it is. We're aware of who they are, who the two parties are. We're aware of, I have, matter of fact, most of my units are already targeting, those different areas. And, as the investigation goes on, we'll be happy to give you updates. We have a pretty good idea of who did it and who's involved.
Okay. Thank you very
Sorry, I
much.
was muted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, because I want to be heard. I had
No problem. And if
So
you, I don't know if you've
it's-
seen, but we have a larger presence of cops in the area. I don't know if you've seen it. I've had
No,
a
I
lot of
haven't.
officers in the
I have
area.
to be perfectly honest with you, and it's very unnerving because I'm a senior and I live 3 blocks from where that happened. Actually, I'm on 165th and Broadway.
So you say you have not.
No, I haven't. That's my issue. Is that to
Okay.
me, I don't see enough
All right.
police here.
I
That's my
got you.
issue.
Okay. As a, you know, and I believe you. I 100% I believe you, man. But as a matter of fact, I had one of my response orders on 165th and Broadway yesterday. But you know what? I'll make sure that, you know, we keep hammering away, and I'll make sure my officers stay in the area.
Yeah, because
Thank you.
there's a lot of noise
Sure.
on my corner. I'm sorry, Curtis. Because on my corner, and I have complained about it till I'm blue in the face. It's constant noise, and I mean noise. These cars think that this is a hangout over here, and blasting the music like I've never heard. And my windows are literally rattling like almost every single night. I can't take it. Okay. You wouldn't want to be dealing with this every night, neither, and neither would anybody else. And I don't think that anybody should have to deal with that night after night after night after night. And
I got you, ma'am. Now, are you talking about 165 and Broadway, or
Yes, I'm right by Morgan Stanley. I'm right across the street from Morgan
by the
Stanley.
Chase Bank?
Right across the street from there. Yes.
All right, no problem. I'll make sure I keep it in mind.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. Okay, are there any other questions from the public for the precincts?
I just have a question, Curtis. It's Maria, Comptroller's office.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, because I know it's a common issue when Curtis asked the question, but I wasn't sure. I mean, in my head, you know, when a package is stolen, there's certain things that you do, and I know that you do report it to the post office. Is that are those numbers taken into account? So not everyone.
If the theft comes, no. If a package is stolen in the street, that is reported to 911 to the police department. If a package doesn't make it to you, as in it never made it, it got lost somewhere in the delivery and its route, that is a post office issue.
Okay, so yeah, because I know that
the theft can happen anywhere as the package is en route. So if it gets stolen from the actual truck, then that gets investigated by the postal inspectors.
Got it.
For whatever reason it might have been. You know, if it falls off the back of the truck as they're loading it from one post office to the next, that's a postal inspector issue. Now, once it makes it to your building, yes, that is a police department issue.
Yeah, so I thank you for the clarity, because I feel like that's not clear to folks. And if you go to the post office, they'll tell you to file a claim with them. And if that's not the right way, I think that they should be informed correctly. Like, these are the things that you should do.
Mhm.
They also don't respond, so you don't quite know. Not everyone has a good relationship with the manager. You know, this is Washington Heights and Inwood, so that's not necessarily going to work for everyone. But just like to know that process is super, super helpful, especially for that agency itself to like let people know you should do this if this is what happens, and also file a claim with us.
Yeah, like if you check your package, I mean, most packages have tracking. If it says that, you know, if your package is to your building and it gets stolen from there, 100% that's a police issue, police department issue. If en route, if it gets lost en route for some reason, you never get a notice on your phone and you keep tracking it, and they say, well, you know, it's been delivering for X amount of days, then that is 100% a postal inspector issue.
Is there?
It's awesome. I just think there needs to be clarity for the post office itself. So when they're speaking to a person, because you're explaining it very clearly now, but I don't think that's common knowledge. So I think it would be great if something is done so that folks know that that is what the procedure looks like.
Mhm.
But thank you so much for that. That was actually the question. Sorry for this.
No problem. No problem at all. I think that's a great clarifying question. I didn't really think about that. So even if if someone files a report, you don't necessarily share that information with the post office just for background checks or just for investigative purposes?
Well, depends. I mean, when we have package thefts or especially income tax season, a lot of that's big. All the checks get lost. A lot of checks get lost. A lot of people send money orders, stuff like that. So there's different styles of theft. There's patterns, which, you know, it's handled by Grand Larceny Division. We call it Grand Larceny. So what happens is if checks start disappearing in a certain area, then they get deposited in certain boxes, or I don't know if you've seen, instead of mailboxes in the corner, there's these other boxes that are kind of like the midpoint between the sender, the post office, and the receiver of the package of the letter. So a lot of those boxes, they're just locked up. It's not looks like a postal like a mailbox, but it doesn't have any little door, any window. So that's where they store a lot of mail. Mail like that, when it gets broken into, that is a postal inspector issue. But a lot of those thefts are in whether they're internal or maybe they got a hold of one of those keys or maybe they stole one of those little mail carts. So the keys on those mail carts are the keys that open those storage boxes in the corners. So what they do is they target these boxes. They go around opening all the boxes, seeing what they can find. Now, theft like that gets investigated by Grand Larceny Division, which is, those are observation arrests. We have to set up, watch who opens which boxes, when was it taken, see which individuals have been arrested because of these steps in the past, whether it's an inside job or now, whether it's just a crew of individuals who are targeting. The mailman comes into your building, leaves the little card outside, So there's a lot of groups of individuals that they all work together and they target these little cards. They wait for the mailman to go in the building, they go and grab the card and take off. Now they have a bunch of these little cards and they have the keys because the keys are left most of the time on the card. So what they have now is the key to those what look like mailboxes in the corners. So now they go around seeing if the key opens. Once it opens, they have a big bag full of mail, full of packages that are just they're up for grabs, and that's what they do sometimes.
Okay.
That gets investigated by us. So there's different types of theft packages. Now, once they make it into your building, we also have patterns, which is the same individuals targeting different areas, doing the same kind of crime. And we also have Grand Larceny Division or different divisions that investigate those crimes. So there's different ways we tackle that. All I can say is if it's from a building, packages, make sure the cameras work. And I encourage you to, talk to your management or the landlord. Make sure your cameras work. Make sure somebody has, contact number for the management, and make sure the locks always work. Because a lot of these locks don't work. Sorry to say, but you could just kind of brush the lock and it'll pop open. We do it all the time. We test the locks all the time, and we know this happens.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for clarifying there. So OC Kaminer, Chanel from the Community Board Office. OC Kaminer is on, but she can't unmute herself from the phone. How do you unmute yourself when you're on the phone? Someone who just did that could maybe help us with that.
I believe it's *6.
*6. OC, press *6 and you should be fine. And then you can pose your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now. Okay, great. So just yeah. So OC, I know you have a question about the follow-up question about the animal abuse case that we heard a few months back. Just FYI, Sergeant Perez, this is his first time attending our meeting, so I'm not sure if Sergeant Perez.
I heard that.
Yeah. So, Sergeant Perez, you want to pose your question, and then Sergeant Perez, could you follow up with us and send us a response to that question via email if you don't have an answer now?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. What's the question?
Okay. Ozzy?
Okay, so I think it was March or April where you guys reported on animal abuse case on Nagel Avenue. My question is if you can, whatever you can, if you can give us more information about that, and I want to know what animal was. It was dogs, cats, birds, whatever that is. And I also, I have some issue that I don't want to, discuss in public. Is there any way I can call somebody at the precinct and talk about it too?
You want to take my number now?
I don't have a pen. I'm in the car. I don't have a pen with me. So
I just put my email address in the chat box. Can you see that, Sergeant Perez?
No, because I'm on the speakerphone on the phone.
Okay. Well, I will give you if you can write. Can you write down an email address?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my email address is CD. Oh man, we're live. I'm giving my email address out to the whole world. I mean, oh well, I'll take the risk. It is CD as in dog, YOUNG 23@gmail.com. If I'm spam tomorrow, I'm gonna be upset. But that's my email address.
You want to take mine also, just in case?
Yeah. What is yours?
It's gonna be Douglas.Perez @nypd.org.
Is that Douglas with one S?
Yeah, one S.
All right, cool. So I will send you OC's question. You can respond before I email you as well with an answer, and I'll make sure that you and OC are connected. I'll actually email you OC's phone number directly so you can reach out to each other about her personal question.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, so that leaves us to another community member. Bernard has his hand raised.
Yeah, this is for the 33rd.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned something about giving out tickets for loitering and blocking the sidewalk, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So last summer on my block, I had a situation in which some people had posted up constant parties every weekend from Thursday through Sunday, all night long, and they were in front of businesses, which would normally be closed. They were not in front of their own homes, and blasting music all night long, sitting out there drinking and doing whatever. And I don't recall any tickets having been given out to those people.
Yeah, are you talking about like when the businesses were applying for the like restaurant or bars applying for outdoor dining permits?
No, these were not. These were barbershops, hair salons, and a cigar store.
I was not aware that there was such. Where was this?
161st Street between Broadway and Fort Washington.
But Bernard, I'm sorry to interject just 1 second. Didn't you resolve, or you've been working with Captain Chung for the 3-3?
Well, that was. I mean, it's kind of over for now, but it could happen again. I'm just interested in finding out. I'm interested in finding out about these tickets.
So now, you would like to know the number of tickets that were given out?
I don't think any tickets were given out over there, but I was just questioning whether there possibly this coming year, in case the same situation happens, whether tickets would be given out this year.
So if that occurs, I mean, I would encourage you to call 311 or call the precinct and complain that you have people, partying and smoking and hookah and, setting up shop in front of your building. We'll be happy to go and address it. It's not a big deal. The officers will go and break it up or issue summonses. We like to give warnings. We like to give people, listen, guys, we got to move it. Most people will comply as soon as we show up and we ask them to move and not come back. If they refuse after we ask them, we'll have to issue summonses.
Somehow that's not what was happening. But I'll be, hopefully this won't happen this coming year. So
hopefully not, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
thank you very much. Just FYI for committee members, Danielle did send over the resolution that she drafted. So if you have a moment to look it up as we move through our discussion, you can do that now. So that's there. Check your email. All right. So after that, we're going to move on and shift gears to our update from the fire department. There obviously was a very tragic fire yesterday. Thankfully, I don't believe there were any lives lost, but we would love to hear an update on where we are with that. There were also several elected officials who were on the scene who have been working to organize support for the family's GoFundMe account. So I would love for the Assistant Director of Community Affairs for the fire department to give us an update on that, and also the precincts want to jump in as well after Assistant Director Sanchez speaks.
Sure. This is Lieutenant Zambrano again. If you don't mind, if nobody has any more questions for the precinct, I might have to be a response to mobilization downtown. Is it all right if nobody has any questions, I'm going to have to exit.
Okay, please go for it. We'll protect our democracy.
Thank
you.
Thank
you very much. Okay, Sanchez.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to this meeting. Just want to share a brief update as to the fire that took place at 74 Post Avenue. The fire took place on January 5th. The call came in at 1900 hours, and that's 7 p.m. And we arrived on scene at 19:02, so that's 7:02 p.m. So in 2 minutes that we were on scene and really just battling that fire. Thankfully, there were no fatalities. There were 2 firefighters with minor injuries, but they have since been treated. The SDNY fire marshal, we did conduct an investigation that took place most of today, and we concluded that the cause of the 4-alarm fire, it was accidental electrical hardwiring, and there was a smoke alarm present, but there was not one activated at the time of the fire that took place. Unfortunately, what we see now, especially this is the heating season, that there is an increase for many reasons. There are many contributing factors as to why fire increases throughout the winter, many of which being heating and appliances as we're continuing to work through what is our holiday season, candles and the like, added cooking that's taking place. We invite everyone to engage with our fire safety education unit. That way, it's really an essential tool that we can continue to equip New Yorkers and certainly the residents of Community Board 12 on how to be fire safe. I will include my email and my contact in the chat because we truly would like to partner with residents. So there's not a place that we will not go, and especially now that we are now virtual in most things, we are able to facilitate so many forums of outreach with the community as well. We're looking for ways to collaborate with you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's so great to have you at our meeting, and this is your first one, so thank you very much. I would love to take you up on your offer to have someone come and speak about fire safety. We've had someone in previous years, but it's been a long time since we've had a good representative from the FDY come and present to us. So I would love to work with you offline, and maybe you can come and have someone give a short 15-minute presentation on fire safety that we can share with the community in the month of February. So let's get in touch about that. So is that okay with you?
That sounds like a plan. I date and time, and we'll certainly be there.
All right, first Wednesday of the month, so that's February. I'm gonna give you that's about 15 minutes, maybe.
We will take whatever time you give us, but for like a real thorough presentation, I would just recommend a bit more time because the way we are, it's an engaging presentation, not just a monologue or lecture style. So it allows for people to ask questions that may be pertinent to where they live. And again, we prefer a little bit more time, but if 15 is all you got, we will certainly make it work.
I think now that I hear you, maybe this is a separate, maybe we just invite this is a separate meeting outside of our community board meeting, and we can advertise it as a public safety, fire safety meeting that people can choose to join in the month of February. So I'll be in touch with you about a date.
Great.
I have a hand raised. But before I move on to Danielle, we have Nancy. Our first 2 questions. I will I guess pose the question. We were going back and forth for a little bit on the inoperable fire hydrants issue and trying to get a better understanding of what and how many fire hydrants are in operation. I know our district manager also works with the fire department to get answers such as these data points, but I want you to put that on your radar that we may do some follow-up with you after we speak to figure out how to get that information, either from me or the community office district manager, Ebenezer. So I'll circle back to you on that issue. Mariella also emailed about that, but I'm trying to figure out the right protocol and the right way of getting that data. Okay, so Danielle, you're up next. And there's someone with echo. I'm not sure who has echo. Miss Sanchez. Okay, good. There you go, Danielle.
Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I definitely second what Curtis has said about having you all come either at our next meeting or separately to talk about fire safety. I think that would be Amazing. One question that I had about the fire on Post, you mentioned that there was an alarm present, but it was not activated. Would you mind just explaining what that means?
So what that means is that where the fire, the apartment or the location which the fire was present or originated from, that they had a smoke alarm. And when it said non-activated, that may mean that it's a little ambiguous in the sense that if it's an old alarm, it may be that it was present and had no batteries. So, but non-activated may be that it was there and it did not function as it should.
Thanks so much for that. And I'm just wondering, I know that you said that you're able to do presentations on fire safety, but are you all available to actually enter residences and do in-person presentations or to alarms or distribute batteries or smoke alarms? I think I recall last year, one of your colleagues talked about a program in which smoke alarms were actually distributed in our area. So is anything like that still going on? And do you have any staff available to actually go into buildings physically?
Thank you so much, Danielle, for that great question. The program that you're referring to is our Get Alarm program. We partnered alongside with the Red Cross and also fire department retirees. And I believe Community Ward 12 was one of the communities that we highlighted throughout the city that had a high incident of fire fatality and incidents, just large incidents as well. And we had a program in which we were able to not only host fire safety presentations, but you were able to sign up for an alarm, and an alarm would then be installed by a volunteer. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we had to halt that because it's very difficult to maintain physical distancing as it relates to installing alarms, because we make sure that we also engage with the residents. We don't just come in, install, and go. We make sure that we have a conversation, and even if they were not able to participate in what would be the general fire safety education presentation that we hosted, but they do have that one-on-one. They're able to ask us and engage with us and have their questions answered. And unfortunately, as we're beginning to revamp and see what a partial installation would look like, the second wave came. So we've had to, again, really put a pause just due to the safety of our New York City residents. But we hope to bring this program back, and the way in which it will work is not because, even though we were stipulated with a certain time, a lot of those stipulations due to the grant funding have been extended. So as soon as we launch, be it virtually or partially, we will continue to re-engage the community virtual. We will not just pass by and move on to the next community board. And should you know, and as it relates to coming in home, it's though we may inspect as it relates to buildings, we do have our inspection, our Bureau of Fire Inspection that comes in and inspects buildings as a whole. For the general nature, our firefighters and our will not go into residential homes and also into your apartment. And I just highlight that because we live in a very wicked world, and people get creative and try to mask themselves as they're coming from a city agency, and people may haphazardly say that they're a fire department and let them in. And unless we have an appointment with you, and that you would get a call, you would get a follow-up, we will not come into your residential home and there actually not be a fire.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Nancy Preston.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Curtis, and good to see all of you. Sandra, thank you. I've been to a number of meetings where there were presentations by fire safety, and they've always been very entertaining. So, but I was wondering if you do have shareable, like, tutorial video presentations that could be easily shared. That's one question. I also want to say, great idea, Curtis, to have a meeting specially for, some event specially for the presentation. That could also be recorded and shared. And my other question is, a lot of our fires up here, our housing stock, you're talking about, wood frames, a lot of old wood frame buildings, so they're very volatile, right? And a lot of old wiring and faulty wiring. Graham can attest to that in our building complex where we had a fire. And ways to preventive measures, is there anything that fire department can do in regard with that we could kind of offset future tragedies?
Mm-hmm. And to add on to your question, Nancy, I would also add that because of the influx of outdoor dining and restaurants using electrical, propane tanks for some and electrical plugs for some, I don't even think that both are legal on the street level. I think some have to be on the top, the propane for the rooftops, or I'm not sure what the regulations are, but they have those two options. And I think that because there's also an influx of electrical outdoor equipment with plugs, that could also impact fire safety. So I would love to answer Nancy's question, but also think about has there been an impact because of the outdoor dining electrical usage?
Thank you for those great questions, Nancy and Curtis. Yes, in short, Nancy, we have a plethora of presentations that are shareable, that are available. They're available on fdnysmart.org/connect. I will include that in the chat. There you will find a host of videos, some that are geared towards our children, cooking safety as we find ourselves home, and cooking more often if anyone is like me. So you will be able to, and I'll also share PDF. We have fire safety pamphlets and topical indices of various topics that you're able to share. That's a pamphlet. That's pamphlet and shareable through email. So I'll include that. To add to what you're saying, as in the housing stock, the difficulty that we encounter, and this is not something that's limited to Community Board 12, is the increase in the appliances that we're using. When these houses were built, there weren't all these appliances. Everyone, and the easiest thing that I can point to is that everyone has a phone. Everyone in that household has a phone. They have a charger. They have a tablet. Our appliance, our access appliance, their usage has tripled since the actual houses were built. So what we incorporate within our fire safety education presentations is ways, simple tips like not leaving your charger plugged in, because again, if you touch that charger, it's hot after you leave it plugged in for a while, even if the phone is on it, to make sure that people are aware. And also making sure that we're working, and this may be, I think your question, the second part of your question, Nancy, may be in the purview of the Department of Buildings to regulate on what necessarily is fire safety. So I cannot speak to that directly.
Okay, thank you.
Curtis, you seem to be on mute.
Okay, here I am. I know there were a lot of elected officials on the scene, so I did invite a lot of our electeds to also share. I know there's been a lot of efforts to help the families relocate, get all the things they need, and to adjust to this tragedy. So I would love to invite. I think we have Senator Jackson's office here, the Assemblywoman is here, as well as Al Taylor and the comptroller. So how about we start with Senator Jackson's representative to share any thoughts or any reflections from your observations yesterday.
Hi, everyone. So yesterday's fire was tragic in terms of displaced many families. I think it was about 20 families, but thankfully, as you mentioned, no one was hurt. And I have to first give my appreciation on behalf of the senator to FDNY, to OEM, as well as to the Department of Buildings and the Red Cross, who I've been communicating with all day today. So what we found out, we were on the scene yesterday, is before the fire department confirmed that it was probably due to faulty wiring, we heard from tenants themselves that they have been complaining and have had concerns and about faulty wiring. And even though they hadn't heard from the fire marshal at the time, it was basically what they felt would be the ultimate conclusion. And as a result, our office is looking into possible legislation. Sorry, it's moving the computer. We're looking into possible legislation to perhaps look at how we can provide inspections, not we, but have the city do inspections, whether it's during the lease renewal process, but something that would trigger accountability in regards to looking at the wiring. As Nancy Preston mentioned, we do have many old buildings in our district, and there really isn't a way to be preventive. And we want to make sure that we're not reactive so that we don't have these kind of tragedies occur. In addition, our office has had many conversations with constituents that want to help the families that are displaced. And as an elected office, we are not allowed to create a GoFundMe. And we are worried about having because of COVID, a place where people can donate items. We are going to work with Inwood Indivisible as well as Altagracia Faith and Justice to create a GoFundMe. And we're going to work with the tenants to see if we can get a specific list of items that are needed. The information for the GoFundMe will likely be completed by tomorrow, and I'll be happy to share it with this committee.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go over to the Assemblywoman who was also on the scene yesterday evening, Carmen De La Rosa.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yes, I was on the scene last night and again today all day. This is actually the street where I grew up, where my parents still live. And actually a number of my residents live in the building, my relatives live in the building that unfortunately was on fire last night. I think Joanna had a pretty good summary as to some of the complaints we have been receiving from tenants as to the history of the building and the condition in which it was in. Many complaints of, lights flickering before this incident, and complaints that have been reported to the landlord that persisted in the building. Actually, we have already been working with the tenant association leaders in the building to create a GoFundMe account that is live. It is a partnership between the Juan Pablo Duarte Foundation and the Tenants Association. I'm happy to share the link on the chat as soon as I finish speaking, but there is a GoFundMe that is up. And Joanna is right that we understand that with COVID-19, it is going to be necessary for us to take the precautions when we're donating items. So making sure that we are assisting the families with money donations in order to make sure that they can buy some of their basic necessities and some of the furniture once the building is back in order. As of tonight, the heat is back on at 78 posts. This is a building that is a tandem building. There are two buildings that are attached. They're under one management. The gas lines are connected to one another. And so Con Edison shut down the gas in both buildings last night in order to secure the premises and not have a bigger disaster with leaky gas, obviously. So as of this moment, 78 Post Avenue has gas and heat and hot water. So the residents of that portion of the building are able to come back to the building. 74 Post has a full vacate order. We registered last night 35 adults and about 16 children who are displaced at this moment. Some of them have taken shelter in a hotel that is provided by the Red Cross. We are working with our colleagues in the other elected officials' office to try and expand that hotel stay beyond tomorrow night. That is the main necessity right now to make sure that those residents have shelter over their heads. And then once that is secure, we are also then working with HPD to secure emergency shelter for the long-term renovations that will take place in this building. One of the main issues at this moment is that the roof in front of the, on the front side of the facade has been completely destroyed on one side of the building. There's also asbestos presence in that roof. And so there is a special treatment that is needed in order to make sure that the community is not exposed to asbestos and that the residents that are still residing within the building are not put in harm's way. So at this moment, we are working, each of the offices are working together to make sure that we're reaching out to tenants, that we're finding out what their needs are, so that one, the Red Cross in the city of New York can step up to the responsibility that they have to these tenants, but also to make sure that as neighbors, we come together in this tragic time, right after New Year's, still at the peak of this pandemic. I know that many of you have heard that zip code 10034 is at about a 10% positivity rate due to COVID. So this is a very hard time. And as you could imagine, in our community, there is a silent voice of homelessness, which is families who are tripled up. Last night, I met a family that had 7 children and 2 parents, and then they were living also with aunts and uncles. And so they're already in situations where they're doubled up and tripled up. Unfortunately, because of the housing crisis, that is a burden on the rest of the tenants that may be part of, that may have family in the area, because they will now be in a situation that is almost unbearable. Think about quarantining in a situation where you have 9 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. So we are really looking at those needs, trying to make sure that we're holding the landlord here accountable, that if the landlord has other buildings in the portfolio, he's able to assist with temporary sheltering of these families while we make repairs. And we're also trying to work with FDNY to continue to educate our community about fire safety. We've actually today been on the phone with FDNY quite a bit, and we're going to be hosting some trainings around fire safety. There's some signs when, as the tenants have already reported, flickering lights and other problems with light switches that were reported in the building. Because of the aging infrastructure in Upper Manhattan, we know that this is a huge issue. So we're just going to keep monitoring the situation. I plan to spend the rest of the week at the site, just talking to the neighbors and helping out. But, I know that our community is a generous one that has come out and gotten together in the past when our neighbors are going through such a traumatic experience. We will be sharing the GoFundMe that has been created by the tenants. And we hope that all of us can continue to support these families together.
Thank you very much, Carmen and Joanna. This is obviously a great tragedy, and as you mentioned, we want to do whatever we can as a community board, as a committee, and as individuals to support the families who have been impacted. It's great to see that there is legislation that's being discussed to prevent this from happening and holding landlords accountable. We've tackled this issue before at this committee. Graham brought up an issue with wiring in this building, as well as Nancy in the past. We most certainly want to ensure that landlords are that the needed inspection is happening and is available, and our community members know how to access those free inspections, as well as finding ways to house them. Having only 2 days to stay in a hotel is insufficient. So thank you both for working on this. I believe are there any questions? Wendy from Assembly Member Al Taylor also is on. So do you want to make any comments about this issue or anything else from the Assembly member before I open it up to questions?
Thank you, Curtis. No, just our, if we can help at all from this district down here, of course, the Assembly member sends his regards and help in any way that we can share it. I also wanted to mention, like Sandra Ms. Sanchez had mentioned earlier, that program that they do have where they are collaborating with the Red Cross. It is absolutely helpful. I actually did it myself. and they came to my home and installed smoke and carbon dioxide detectors, monoxide detectors, sorry. Also, just I wanted to mention one thing that has been affecting Manhattan for almost a year now, and I honestly was not aware of the fullest capacity until today, but it seems that all car towing has been, by the NYPD, has been suspended in the borough of Manhattan because of the dispute that is going on with Pier 76, which is where the tow pound is at. So one of the problems in CB12 that seems to be happening is that the Harlem River Driveway, which is that corridor that will take, right off 155th Street, it used to be a dump there. People would go there and dump their trash, their cars, and that's beginning to happen again now. Right this very moment, we have 3 abandoned cars that have been now considered derelict cars, which means sanitation would have to pick them up. But again, the towing would not happen right away because of what's going on. So that's an issue I just wanted to bring up. And I think we need to work together to make sure that our communities do not regress to what they were back in the 80s, which is where we will head to if we don't make sure to take care of this now. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you very much for bringing it up. I've also noticed these issues as well with sanitation and just they're not even picking up trees. Our day for tree pickup was like Saturday, and we have several trees in front of our building, and it's in my tree bed. And it's ruining my roses I have planted. So I'm a little bit upset about that. But thank you for sharing that concern. I'm very familiar with the area. Okay, so we have Mariel de la Cruz from Scott Stringer's office, and we'll go to you, OC, first for committee questions. Comptroller's office? Mariel, you're on mute. I'm not sure if you're trying to speak, but if you are, please unmute yourself. All right, so we'll come back to you. I'll go over to OC, who has a question for our elected officials.
Yeah, it's more like not really a question, but I wanted to say that I feel that the fire department need to look into those cheap extension cords that people are getting, like the 99-cent extension cords that they use for lighting Christmas trees and other things. Those are actually really dangerous. And I don't know if the fire department is still on the call to have a comment about that. I know that 2 or 3 years ago, there was a big fire on 52nd or 53rd Street, and one person died, and the reason was one of those extension cords. So if the fire department can have a comment about that, that will be great.
Thank you, OC, for that great question. This is going to be, again, shameless promotion for our fire safety education seminar, because there we really have just a section where we discuss the use and overuse of extension cords. Because of the way in which homes and residents are built, they weren't built with the amount of outlets that we use now due to our increase in appliances. And just a rule of thumb, when it is best if you not purchase your extension cords from 99-cent stores, from super deal stores, because you want to make sure that there is a UL rating on it, and that stands for Underwriters Laboratories. So that shows that it has been tested, it has been proven to withstand a certain amount of voltage and usage as well. Another rule of thumb is that anything that is used for heating and or cooling, that's very difficult, should not be placed on an extension cord. So that covers the gamut. So your toaster shouldn't be on an extension cord. That should be collected directly into that outlet. Your space heater, not on an extension cord. Electrical blanket, some of our winter favorites, and even your AC, so a summer favorite, should not be connected to an extension cord. When extension cords were thought of and created, they were made for more of our electronic devices, so for your cell phone, and even then, it shouldn't be left for a long amount of time. And also for like your appliance, your technological appliance, like your TV or your I'm gonna date myself, like your musical center. I don't want to say whether it be your stereo, however you choose to play or share music. So that's just my small snippet, but we look forward to having a fire safety presentation where we can really go over the finer details of safety.
Okay, great. We're gonna plan that for February, as I mentioned earlier. I want to turn it over to Superintendent Miller from DLCCS Edgecombe facility. And then we'll come back to our district attorney update.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Superintendent Miller from New York State Department of Corrections Community Supervision, Edgecombe Residential Treatment Facility. Just some quick updates since the last public safety meeting. The state announced the list of closures for New York State prisons, which turned out to be all upstate Watertown, Gowanda, and the Clinton Annex. So New York City still has 2 state prisons, Queensboro and Edgecombe. In relation to COVID-19, we have had no inmates since the pandemic have tested positive. Our protocols call for full mask use within the facility, social distancing, very diligent cleaning using bleach, and everybody has bought in. Unfortunately, staff has tested positive. Since the last meeting, we've had 3 staff members test positive, but all of their positive encounters were, the contact trace was outside of the facility. Their infection did not cause any other spread in the facility, and that's, once again, a testament to everybody following the protocols that the CDC recommends. So right now we have 1 staff member that's out, and that matter of fact, they're due to come back tomorrow. We are doing asymptomatic testing of the population. So we're doing random testing daily, just to make sure to catch it early if it does happen. And we're also going to start offering testing to the employees next week. So there's going to be bi-weekly testing for employees as well as daily random testing for the population. And as it relates to the vaccine, our medical staff are considered 1A, so they are able to get vaccine right now. And the correction staff is going to be part of the next rollout, which is the 1B. And that'd be an opportunity for officers and staff to get vaccinations. What we're doing right now is just getting a list of staff members who are interested in it, because it's totally voluntary. And we're also preparing the population because they're going to be offered the vaccine as well. And it's also going to be voluntary for them also. But we're going to do an education campaign to, just let everybody know what it is. We're going to be, at this point, using the Moderna version, as we don't have the capacity to handle the freezer temperatures that the Pfizer would call for. So the state has made that arrangement. We are, and we'll be open to any other vaccines that get approved by the CDC and the federal government at a later time. Presently, because of a spike in COVID statewide, visits have been suspended. So there's no visits at any state correctional facilities because of the COVID spike. But there's been more of a spike upstate. There were facilities that earlier in the year had no cases, that now are getting a lot of cases with staff and the population. So, you know, we've taken those measures. There's limited movement now because of the COVID spike, so we're not accepting anybody from local jurisdictions into the state correctional system for 30 days, and there's limited transfers of any inmates across the state because of the pandemic. We, as I've mentioned on other meetings, Edgecombe consists of a female work release component, and right now we're dealing with a general population component, individuals with 90 days or less who are going to be released to the New York City area. We do have a program in there for them that deals with reentry issues as well as life skill issues. Anything from resume writing, better decision making. We're using some cognitive behavioral therapy, like thinking for a change and things of that, seeking safety. So those are the elements of the program.
Thank you.
That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Danielle has a question, but I wanted to just, Danielle, you go first. I'll pose my question after you.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll hold it.
Can you guys see me?
Can we see you?
Oh, the video's locked out. Like it doesn't give me the option to do the video, so I don't know what happened.
Oh.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks so much for joining. I have a couple of questions. The first question that I have is, I'm not sure if you're having an issue with this, but being done to ensure mask compliance. And then the second question that I have is, I'm wondering if folks who are incarcerated are being offered COVID tests prior to being released. And then sort of related to that is, if somebody is positive and nearing their date, are there folks at your facility that are connecting them to hotels or residents if they don't have a place to go to, or if the place that they were going to go to doesn't allow for them to quarantine?
Excellent questions. Good to see you, Danielle. Very simply, first thing is, if someone we do the COVID test with the population, and if they're going to get transferred to another jurisdiction, like if they're being transferred to federal jurisdiction or something like that, there's a requirement that we have to do a test with that population. For somebody that's just getting released, we're doing random testing. So like right now, everybody that's in my facility has been tested recently. If somebody tests positive close to their release date, they're not going to get released. We're going to keep them until their quarantine time is up. So we're not going to release somebody that's positive for COVID, even if it's past their date. That's the state's policy on that at this time.
Okay. Yeah, I know that the city is working with the MOCJ and arranging for hotels. So I wondered if you had something like that. But I guess, thank you for that. And then my first question was about mask compliance. I know that you said that you had a few staff members test positive. So I'm just wondering what sorts of measures or steps you're taking to ensure that everybody's wearing their masks.
I mean, it's required. There'll be disciplinary sanctions for staff not wearing masks. I've written up staff that I've found not wearing masks. It's a campaign. The second you walk in the facility, you will see a signage all over telling people to wear masks. All the supervisors know to ensure it, and we're actually we feel good about it because for all the 3 officers that did test positive that had contact with other staff members and they did the contact trace, nobody was positive after the contact trace. So with the rise of this pandemic and the spike, we know you can't stop infection, but we do have a responsibility to stop spread. And so we have not had any spread, even with the recent spike. As far as the population, they have to wear a mask whenever they're off of the housing unit. If they go to a program, if they're going to chow, if they're going to do any work around the facility, they have to wear a mask. If they go for visit, when we had visitation, they had to wear masks. They had to sit behind a plexiglass, that sort of thing. On the housing unit, they don't, wearing a mask is encouraged, but if they're in their cube, you know, where their bed is and things like that, they don't have to wear the mask. If they go into the rec room, then it's encouraged for them to wear a mask. But some of the reality of it, and we really addressed it, but if they've been together for a certain period of time, it's almost like on the unit, they're like it's almost like a family unit, like when you go home with because these are people that you're around all the time. So there's not 100% mandate for them to always have masks on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the update. Let's see here. I was notified that the district attorney office is here to share a few updates. Dr. Minaya?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Sorry, I can't start my video because when I do, you'll see my desk because it's remote. So you don't want to look at my empty desk. So I hope everyone is well. I am looking forward to 2021, as I'm sure everyone on the call is. And I'm hoping when we can get back to a time when we can meet in person and you know, and commune all together. I really, really missed that part of my job, being able to sit with my community. But I'm so thankful that we're at least being able to communicate this way and be able to continue working together. The only thing that I want to report on that we're seeing, and we're doing a concerted effort, especially with our senior population, is getting the word out on the scams that we're seeing, particularly COVID scams, COVID-related scams, as well as I'm sure you've all heard of the Social Security scams where people are getting calls. They're saying, you know, your Social Security number's been compromised, or you are using your Social Security number fraudulently, you know, we're going to go arrest you, and so on and so forth. So we've been doing a concerted effort to make sure to spread the word out in the community, especially, you know, with all these COVID fears. And I think it's so sad, you know, that we live in times when people prey upon our fears. You know, there's no such thing as getting a free COVID vaccine now, you know, or jumping ahead of everyone and getting a COVID vaccine. If you provide, you know, all of your vital information, you'll be eligible for this, that, or the other. So we want to make sure to get the word out that we're seeing these things, as well as, believe it or not, the apartment scams are still alive and well. I've gotten quite a few referrals from my colleagues in my elected officials' offices regarding people that are, once again, doing the apartment scam, which for those of you who've never heard of it, it's someone saying, I've got an apartment for rent, and they actually take money from people, and lo and behold, there is no apartment for rent. And, you know, numerous people are out thousands of dollars. So if anyone knows of someone who's been a victim or suspect that someone is being victimized, please feel free to refer them to us. We've had to go back to being in office in person only one day a week for the Washington Heights office. You know, I was very excited. We were there twice a week, and then now with the spike again, they've asked us to reduce our footprint, so we're only there once a week, but we're working 5 days a week, or now for me, 7 days a week, because the office number rings directly either at my home number or my cell number when we're not in the office. So please feel free to refer to my office. Please tell them to please call me. That's what we're here for, and we will follow up on any and all complaints of suspected fraud and assist in any way we can. We continue to forge forward in our fight against domestic violence, as you know. You know, that has not eased up at all. So we're also here for those types of complaints or any other type of complaints where people feel they have been victimized or are the victim of a crime. We're here to help them in that capacity. So thank you, Curtis, for having us here every month. The DA sends his regards to the community. Ellie sends her regards. She's actually on vacation this week, so I happily told her that I will attend this meeting, and will do so as often as I can moving forward.
Thank you so much for joining. It's always great to hear from you, hear your voice. I would love to pose a question about the, we'll make a recommendation actually. Have you been in touch with the aging committee? I believe, who chairs that committee? Mary Anderson. Mary Anderson's committee about doing a presentation on to this aging committee.
You know what? I haven't spoken to Mary about it, but that's a wonderful idea. Mary actually lives right across the street from my parents' house, so I see her quite often, and see her out and about in the community. I don't know how she does it, but I would definitely get in contact with her, and we can set that up for the aging committee. But we did do it for all the North. I don't recall if she was on one of them. She may or may not have been, but thank you for that idea. I definitely will touch base with her.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Alrighty, so I think we've made it through all of our presentations and community updates. So we are going to transition to an old business item, which is the resolution on technical parole violation, the Less is More campaign. We had a presentation, I believe, the month of November, and we were hoping to have a resolution prepared for December. However, we need a little bit more time to gather data. So Danielle, our assistant chair, has taken the lead on drafting that resolution. And I want to just, can you share your screen, Danielle, or should I share mine?
Do you mind sharing yours?
I will go ahead and share mine. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see here.
I removed the highlighted portion, or actually I removed the space for the number that we were going to insert of people who are on parole in our area, just because we don't have that data point. So I just replaced that space with many.
Okay, and you can see my screen. You can see the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So could you give us a little backstory? There may be people on the call who were not at the meeting in November. So can you just give us a brief summary of what happened and how we got to this point?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we were in touch with a nonprofit called the Cater Center for Equity and Justice, and they talked to us about their campaign called Less is More, which is aimed at has four tenets which are in this resolution. I actually listed them out, but basically it's aimed at people who are on parole, namely trying to keep people who are on parole out of jail, and then also allowing for earned time credit, and it says bolstering due process hearings. But I would say that the main point is to sort of keep those folks out of jail. And keeping people out of jail will allow for tremendous amount of savings, which will ultimately be reinvested in communities. And so that being said, we support this resolution because our ultimate goal is to keep people safe and to invest in our community and have better education and wraparound services, things of that nature. And I don't know if I'm leaving anything out, but basically the language from this resolution is mostly borrowed from the Cato Center's fact sheet, as well as the actual bills themselves from the Senate and Assembly. And then I added just a few, I think the first line about public safety and how that includes folks how public safety is keeping people out of jail, and then also anybody that goes to the criminal justice system. So I think people as well. Yeah.
Great, cool. Thank you very much. So this resolution was already voted on, and it passed unanimously. So this is just a part of the process to circle back around to show, because we have more time, we wanted to share the final product with the full committee prior to the next general body meeting, in which we will then present it to the full board for passage. So I don't think there's much more other than that.
There's some typos on it and some minor things that need to be changed. Are we going to have a chance to do that?
Yep, we can do that. We can do that. You all have access to the document. If there's minor typos, we don't have to do that right now in real time. Everyone has, Danielle graciously given everyone access to the Google Doc. If there are content changes, however, we should discuss that. So we can work on the grammatical changes offline between now and the next 2 weeks before the general body. Are there any content questions or major concerns about anything that was written?
We sent a link that allows for commenting. I can resend another one that allows just for editing. But if there are grammatical issues or suggestions, you can feel free to put it in a comment and I'll just make those changes.
Okay.
I know some of it might be redundant because I added things. I think some parts were the cost. There are a few lines about cost. I'm not sure if any of that seems redundant, but yeah, if any suggestions, please feel free to just comment and then I'll make the changes.
All right. Cool. I think that is now a settled old business item. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. We'll work on it. Like I said, it was great work done by you, Danielle, and thank you for taking the lead on this entire thing. Yeah. All right. So the last old business item was something we discussed back in December, and that was kicking off the year by hosting a public meeting for our committee under the topic of reimagining public safety. This is a high priority of mine because I think it's such an important topic, and I would love to get a panel discussion at the community level to discuss what it means. Maybe have community members also share some of their visions for what public safety should be at the local level, and we can use that to share with our elected officials or whomever else. In my mind, my vision is to not have a panel with the elected officials, but to have a panel with local activists or organizers from the city who work under the umbrella of public safety or reimagining public safety. So one of the groups I was thinking of having, so I would love to this is brainstorming session now. So I would love to get your feedback on inviting maybe someone from Vocal New York. They've come to us, they presented last year when we had a panel, a public hearing on bail reform. So perhaps having someone from Vocal New York be a part of that conversation, giving them obviously a set of questions, maybe giving them a particular area to focus on, maybe having someone from the BARD Prison Initiative. They were great as we discussed this topic of technical parole violations in November. That would be a great group of people to add to the panel. So I'm looking to get your ideas on who else we should be thinking of inviting to be panelists as a part of this conversation. I also feel like it could be a two-part presentation, meaning we would focus on public safety and the intersection of education and coordinating with the education committee, and then having the first session focus on how to invest in educational programs to prevent young people or even older people from falling into this cycle of incarceration. So I would love to get your thoughts on those items at this point.
I haven't worked with them recently, but years ago, I had collaborated with my school with the Center for Court Innovation, and I know that they organize a lot of different events and different programs. I don't know if they have anything that's newer or anything that's even particular to certain communities or certain areas of New York City, but they kind of come to mind.
That is an amazing organization. I've done work with them as well, and I think that is a perfect suggestion. So I'll add them to the list. What do you think is an appropriate number for a panel? 3 organizations or 4 or 5?
I think 3.
3, okay.
Because you want to leave time for everyone to talk about their ideas and share information.
Okay. So if we reached out to Center for Court Innovation, how does Vocal New York sound? Do you think that's a good option for us, Vocal New York? I guess that's a yes. All right. And then Danielle, I mentioned BARD. That was a group that you brought in. You have the contact there. Do you think they would be interested in participating in the forum?
Yeah, it was that happened to have participated, but I'll definitely reach out that person or to other folks at BART and see if we can get somebody. Although since I'm speaking, I was thinking of having somebody, thinking we can have somebody who could talk about gun violence, just since it's on the rise in our city right now. I'm not sure what we can think about that, or if there are any suggestions for specific groups.
There is street corner resources. They're Harlem based, and there's also, what is Jackie Rowe Adams' group called, Graham? Is it Mothers Against Gun Violence?
Harlem Mother Save.
Harlem Mother Save. Yeah. I don't know. Danielle and I were talking earlier. I'm not aware of many uptown anti-gun violence street resources groups. Are you familiar? Anyone on the call familiar with options we can tap into that are based uptown that tackle the issue of gun violence and youth? No.
It's pretty much a desert when it comes to that. I think it's part of the problems with public safety and working with our community. But I think Brotherhood, Sister So, if they had more support in regards to funding as well as street corners, are able to kind of extend themselves a little bit. I know that Kari White from Brotherhood, Sister So has talked about doing a little bit more further uptown.
Okay. Cool. All right. So we have a good group of 6 organizations. Just to recap, Center for Court Innovation is an option. BART Prison Initiative, Vocal New York, Harlem Mother Saves, and then Brother Sister Soul. That's 5 groups. So I'll take the lead on reaching out to see what their availabilities are and if they will be interested. And then from there we can start to finalize who's going to be the actual presenter. I would love to not be the moderator and host for this event. So if someone on the committee would be interested in facilitating the conversation, maybe one of our newer members, Mariella.
Sure.
Okay. I know, Danielle, you did the last one, right? You did the bail reform hearing.
Yeah, no, I think Mariella would be great. I definitely second that. But I was just gonna say, I don't know if this would be too many people, but just sort of throwing out some additional ideas, potentially like somebody from a defender agency, like Legal Aid, or RAP, does really great work with older folks who are in prison. And there's also cases, just to sort of throw out a few more ideas.
Right.
I was also thinking, since we're just brainstorming, right? I mean, something related to mental health and like mental illness and the connections between mental illness and crime and potential outreach. So like, what are the things that are criminalized and the things that like shouldn't be criminalized, and maybe adding that to the conversation.
Right. Is it too heavy to tackle? I mean, there's like the education component, there's the mental health component, there's gun violence, there's the current incarceration population. Is it too much to have an extended forum and have one person kind of focus on one of the issues, and we kind of go 15 minutes here on mental health, 15 minutes here on education and public safety, 15 minutes here on the intersection of public safety and housing issue? Or is that too much content for one workshop, one hearing, or public meeting rather?
I think I wonder if part of organizing this is thinking like, what is the desired outcome? Like if it's to educate people, I think that those are like a different format than say if it's like to motivate people to take an action, right? So then like maybe the organizations or the speakers or, is more like, and if you're really interested, you can do this, right? Like, are we moving in that direction? Or is it about like, let's just educate the public more about resources that are available if they need them, or just general knowledge? Because I think you're right, it could go in so many different directions.
Yeah, I would say general knowledge, because the conversations that are happening around public safety, which we should be a part of because we're a public safety committee, are happening from the top down. It's like elected officials saying, this is what I envision public safety to be. This is how we reimagine it. But I don't think I would love to have more, community input, community conversations about what's happening at the local level. Like how are, within our little confine, the CB district. What are some of the concerns or things that we should be considering in regards to public safety from, with the information that's being provided by activists, allowing those who attend our meetings to also participate? Because, one of the things that we hear over and over again is like, well, stop the gun violence, stop the fireworks and stop the noise. And, I think those are really important things to really to focus on, but we also have to make sure that we're not overly focusing on reincarceration or being punitive because of the issues that we face and we have to tackle on our community. So I would love to educate the community on just the broader issue to kind of guide us from the school of thought that the solution or how we can help as a committee is by encouraging, stronger law enforcement or more incarceration or more summons. I think those help, but it's not the only thing that's needed to really improve the situation that we have to tackle at our committee level. Does that make sense?
I think I'm just gonna jump in for a sec. I like what Mariella said about thinking about like the desired outcome, and if the goal would be to have them come and talk about a specific subject so that they can then talk about next steps or like a specific legislation or if we want to have like a broad conversation about public safety. And I think it could be pretty cool to have a broad conversation about public safety with maybe 10 questions, and then have each of the individuals sort of provide their thoughts, but and then potentially have them come back in the future to deliver a presentation that's focused just on their subject matter. I guess we could go about it different ways.
Right. Well, there are, Brian Benjamin, I believe, has a package of legislation that focuses on public safety. So there are a lot of advocacy efforts that are happening, that are going to happen between now and June because of the legislative session. I even think Senator Jackson has some bills that also falls under this, and our Assemblywoman as well. So there are legislative efforts that will coincide with this. So we can always define it by including some of the things that we know that's out there that's taking place in Albany, to get their perspectives on the legislation, to provide that with the public. And maybe that would be our outcome, to find a way to either support some of the things that are just going to happen in Albany under the issue, as well as some of the things that are happening locally on the issue as well, in the form of a resolution. All right, cool. So I will take the lead on this. I will start reaching out. Mariella, you, Danielle, and I can work together on kind of curating the experience, and we can come back to the group to figure out what. I also think it should not be on our meeting day. It should be we can have a separate date in the month of February. So I'll shoot around that via email, and we can come to an agreement on what that would be. Obviously, for public meetings or meetings of this nature or public sessions, the attendance would not be if it's a day you can't make it, you can't make it. It's different from our attendance on for our committee days. So we can figure out a date that works for most of us and go and move forward. All right, that's all I have for today, team. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Well, it's been a great meeting. It's been a very challenging day. Keep the faith, keep hope alive, as they say, and hopefully we'll get through this. I know tomorrow will be a better day. All right, take care. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.